They're finally starting to see it, folks. We're starting to hear percolations from different banks. We're starting to hear different fund advisors starting to say the very same thing, that there are food shortages coming. We see the entire nation of India closing down its exports of rice because they need to hold the food in their country because there's food shortages coming. Friends, we're starting to see experts, we're starting to see nations and governments starting to do something about the actual food shortages. There's been people laughing and saying, there's no food shortage, there's not going to be a food shortage, it can't happen. Funny. We're starting to hear people starting to change their tune. We're going to talk about what's starting to get people's eyes open. What are they seeing that's so concerning? And if you're not already on board, if you're not already understanding that we're going into a time of food crisis, this will wake you up. Welcome to the Poplar Report, everyone. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. We go over stuff here on this channel that is at the cutting edge. Stuff that hasn't happened yet, we're talking about here already. We've been talking about food shortage over the past year and saying crops are looking really bad. Hey, crops are looking bad. And now the experts are finally saying, we have a problem. Yes, friends, we're going to be talking about the stuff that's been happening over the past year because that's what experts are finally looking at, and they're seeing the current crop numbers coming in and saying, we thought this was going to fix it, but it's not. You can also get the most up-to-date information if you go over to our website, thepoplarreport.com. If you're not already using that site, it's like the Drudge Report, but like not crazy. It is not all the stuff that Drudge has become. It's got a bunch of links there, and we post our information there as we get it. So that you'll get even more up-to-date than this channel. All right, let's jump into it, folks. So bankers out there are starting to get excited about grain. They're starting to get excited about oil seeds. They're starting to think that prices on all these things are going to go up like a rocket. And, end of the world, of course bankers are excited about making money when everyone else is going to be suffering really bad. So like Stephen Nicholson at Rabobank, they're getting excited for grains and oil seeds. And we're seeing that they're not the only ones. A whole bunch more attention is being paid now to the futures markets with commodities in grains as well as other foodstuffs. They want to make a killing off of your and my pain. Sounds like a typical banker to me. But it's not just bankers who are seeing the problems. As we said, we're starting to see politicians getting in on it. Over in India, Modi, the president for life and semi-permanent person there, he's shutting off the exports of rice. Friends, you don't start hoarding something unless you think there is a shortage of it, unless you think there is more value to it than what other people are seeing. And that is something that we're seeing from India right now, and we're going to probably be seeing other countries following suit with their own export bans on food. So this covers all rice except for basmati rice. Every other kind of rice, all the cheap rice, banned from export. They cannot export it. Indonesia, we're seeing some big issues out of Indonesia. They decided to go full socialist, and they had their food estate program where they're basically confiscating farmland and giving it to people who don't know how to grow crops. What could possibly go wrong? Also, of course, they have all sorts of initiatives. They're playing games in the market, forcing farmers to grow stuff for biodiesel when there isn't enough food. We're seeing them trying to switch farms over to indigenous crops, like stuff that they wouldn't normally grow. But the government is getting in there and saying, you got to grow this stuff. Stop growing that stuff that makes money. Let's start growing stuff that won't make money, but, will solve problems. Also, they're getting hit by the El Nino. That is combined with the pet projects, the land confiscation, the meddling of the government. is it any wonder that their food production is dropping? And Indonesia is not a small country. Indonesia is a major agricultural player, and they got a lot of people in their country. But nothing compared to India. India and China are massive, both population but also food production. Both India and China aren't major exporters of food, but they import a bunch of food, and when they have bad crops, when they have a bad season, they have to import a whole lot more crops. And we're finding that we're hearing really bad numbers and really bad information coming out of India as well as China. China is actually getting hit with a 1-2 punch where they have a band of flooding in the middle of the country where the crops are getting flooded, and then in the north and in the south they have drought, which is crisping up the crops. And we're expecting to hear some really bad numbers out of there. Now, we don't ever really hear accurate numbers out of China, but what we do is we see how much they're importing, and what we see right now is that the government of China has increased its imports of foodstuffs. Why would that be? I'm sure the numbers are wonderful, but yet the government, who sees actual numbers, is importing more food. Yeah, you just see where that one's going. China is going to up their imports of food. And where are they going to import food from? Over the last year, they've imported a whole lot of food from Ukraine. Yeah, the whole Black Sea grain deal. China was the biggest importer of grain from that. But that's dead. Ukraine can't export grain anymore. We have the Russians out there mining the harbors and attacking the ports. They've already made it very clear that they will sink ships coming to Ukraine to carry grain away. So that's dead. Russia's going to have a hard time exporting its grain now too. They're going to have to either overland it to China, or they're going to have to get it out some other way, because the Ukrainians are going to start sinking Russian cargo ships as well in the Black Sea. So we got some serious problems there, and so grain is going to suddenly get scarce. And it's not just there. Argentina, they had a terrible harvest this past go-round, and their crops this year, again, are looking really, really bad. They're having drought issues. Also, we have U.S. winter wheat. The harvest for that was terrible again. We talked about that at length here. Bad winter wheat crop, and the spring crop is getting impacted by the U.S. drought, particularly in the center of the United States, not getting enough rain. It's getting baked. Heat wave as well. Put all that together, and we're looking at a bad spring wheat crop that will be harvested in the next couple months. We're expecting those numbers to be down less than where they are. And we're seeing the U.S. Department of Agriculture's estimates on crops is significantly higher than what we're seeing in the private sector. Private sector banks and investment firms and stuff like that have started cutting both Canadian and the United States wheat estimates dramatically. Markets Farm has recently cut their estimates of Canadian wheat down by 15%. That's a lot of wheat. Canada produces a lot of wheat. We're talking about 5 million, I think that's metric tons. So cutting from 35 million down to 30 million. And they're doing that because that's what they're seeing on the ground out there. They're doing the investment. They're not set by timetables and politics like the U.S. Department of Agriculture is. And their estimates are usually spot on. And we're seeing them cutting the Canadian wheat crop by 15%. Friends, what 15% of the world's going to stop eating? Is it going to be you? I mean, 15%, roughly 15% of the world speaks English. Are all the English speakers going to just not eat for the next year? When we start seeing numbers like 15%, that's a big number. Now, I know some people are out there like, oh, the food waste. There's so much food that's wasted. Some people kick around numbers like 30% of food in America is wasted. Well, one, that number is totally bogus. They literally just made it up. They had one little study and they completely took it out of context and then they just applied it to everything. And that was like 20 years ago. How much food waste is in the United States? Granted, grocery stores throw out a bunch of produce, but we do not have nearly as much food waste as people think we do. Can we use food more efficiently? Yes. But really, the big issue is that most of the crops and stuff like that in the United States go to animals. But a lot of those crops aren't fit for human consumption. You can't just take the crops away from the pigs and the cattle and just give it to humans. It's not designed for that. When you grow corn and stuff like that and you give it to animals, it has a very different profile than the corn that goes to human beings. And when human being corn has a really bad year, okay, yeah, that can go to animals, but they're not apples to apples. So we're hearing bad numbers coming out of India as well. I mean, if the numbers in India were good, if they were looking at a bumper crop harvest of rice in India, would they be putting an export ban on rice? No, they would not. Last year, they put heavy caps on how much rice could be exported. The fact that they're going further this year tells you that things are worse in India this year with the crop than they were last year. And then we see China importing even more foodstuffs with really bad satellite photos out there and everything like that, indicating that we're seeing severe crop problems in China. Europe, the crops started looking good with the year, but then they've started looking worse day by day. It's going downhill. If they don't get more rain, they're going to have a serious problem there too. Now, Europe doesn't export quite as much as, and it's not as big of an impact as the United States, as well as China and India and Indonesia. But seeing Europe on the same path is not good. So where are we going to get all our food from? Is Elon Musk going to go up to Mars and bring us back a bunch of food? You say, well, we have a bunch stockpile. We have a bunch, in grain elevators and all that kind of stuff. No, we don't, folks. There is no strategic grain reserve for the United States. If you think there is, get over to Google, type it in, and you're going to see that we used to, but we don't anymore. What's in the system between the farms and your table, they're not stockpiling, friends. They're moving it along the process, but that's why we ran out of potatoes last year. And we're going to be running out of potatoes in the next month or so. Fresh potatoes are going to go bye-bye because we just don't have enough. Canned potatoes are going to disappear shortly thereafter when people realize, hey, I can get my potatoes in a can even though I can't get them fresh. Not only crazy people on YouTube are saying this anymore. We're hearing this from experts. We're seeing countries taking tangible steps to protect themselves. The question is, are you going to be taking tangible steps to protect yourselves? The two most populous countries in the world are taking legitimate big steps to protect themselves. China is importing a lot more food to stockpile. India is refusing to export any of their excess because they're going to stockpile it as well. Do you see a crisis yet? Because the experts out there are starting to see a crisis. Friends, things are going to get rough in the next year. Are you paying attention? Are you getting ready? Those are the questions. If you want to stock up, I keep saying it, rice and beans in 5-gallon buckets in Mylar bags. There's a bazillion videos out there showing you how to do it. Just pop it into YouTube and watch a quick video on how to do it and just order the supplies that you need. If you want someone else to put your buckets together, the cheapest out there is My Patriot Supply. There's a link down below. I'm actually going to pin it right here on the video. If you want to go there and have them put your buckets together, it's a little more expensive, but they are the cheapest bucket, cheapest quality bucket foods out there. So if you want to check out another video on this channel, there's one right up here. If you want to go over to My Patriot Supply and check out what they have, they do have some deals going on right now. You can go click on that link right there to get there. Or put the buckets together, go to Walmart and shop around and get them from there. But folks, take time, prepare, take care of your family. All right, folks, thanks so much for watching. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.